Behind me is probably the most impressive of the large monumental tombs found here in Emek HaMelech. This is known as Yad Avshalom. Traditionally, this is known as by the name Yad Avshalom, which is a name that comes from a pasuk. Avshalom was the son of David HaMelech. We may remember the story that when David was king here in Yerushalayim, his son Avshalom rebelled against him, came with an army to try to attack Yerushalayim. David evacuated Yerushalayim, actually left right here through Nachal Kidron, ran up this way, retreating, so that he wouldn't have to fight a battle in Yerushalayim. Avshalom took over the city of Yerushalayim. David went all the way out to Ever HaYarden, to the other side of the Jordan River. Later, Avshalom's army came to attack David. There was a battle, and eventually Avshalom was killed in that battle by Yoav ben Tzruya, David's general. And the Navi tells us the following. So Avshalom was killed in a place called Yar Ephraim, way north of here. But the pasuk in Shmuel Bet tells us, Shmuel Bet, Perek Yudchet, pasuk Yudchet, Va'avshalom lakach vayatzev lo v'chayav. When Avshalom had been still alive, he built in his lifetime et matzevet asher be'emek HaMelech. He built a matzeva, he built a monument for himself in Emek HaMelech. Ki amar, ein li ben. He said, I have no sons, I have no children to carry after me. Bavur hazkir shmi. Vayikra la matzevet al shmo. Vayikare la yad Avshalom ad hayom hazeh. The pasuk tells us that Avshalom had wanted to be remembered, so he built a monumental tomb for himself, or a monument for himself, in Emek HaMelech. And we've already explained that this area is known as Emek HaMelech. And he called it Yad Avshalom, the monument to Avshalom. And according to the book of Shmuel, he was killed far away from here, buried over there. It's not clear whether he even had the privilege of being buried in this place that he had built to remember himself, because he was such an evil person, a child who rebelled against his father. And according to tradition, this is Yad Avshalom. In fact, in the 19th century, a custom developed here in Yerushalayim. A custom that developed among the Jews and Muslims alike. When a young boy was around the age of bar mitzvah, his father would take him by the hand and bring him outside the city one day, and they would come down to Yad Avshalom, and he would say, this is what happens to a child who doesn't listen to his parents, and the father and son would take stones and throw it to stone the tomb to show how bad it is to rebel against your father and how important it is to respect your parents. Jewish parents used to do this with their sons. Muslim parents from Yerushalayim used to do this with their sons. And in fact, when researchers came here to research this tomb in the 19th century, they found a huge pile of stones from those who came to stone the tomb of Avshalom ben David. There's only one problem. Just like we spoke about before with Kever Zechariah, this cannot possibly be a tomb from the time of Avshalom ben David. Avshalom is 200 years or so before Zechariah, and this is very, very clearly a classical style. Those familiar with classical architecture will see there something in the shape of Ionic capitals on top of the pillars. There's a Doric frieze on top of that, and at the top there's a nefesh of the type that we spoke about before. This is absolutely a style that comes from the end of the second Beit HaMikdash. Actually, archaeologists have dated it even to the 1st century CE, very shortly before the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. And unlike what's called Kever Zechariah down there, this is an actual tomb. The bottom part is carved into the actual mountain, just like the monument we saw before. You can see that there's a hole in the front, which was made later on in history, in the Byzantine period, but there actually is a burial cave inside there, and the nefesh at the top is mounted on top of that. So unlike in the case of Kever Zechariah, where I can suggest that perhaps maybe the tradition is accurate, in this case I can tell you with almost absolute certainty that this is not Yad Avshalom. Somebody's buried in there, or was buried in there, and it's not Avshalom ben David. It's somebody who lived in the 1st century of the Common Era, 1,000 years after Avshalom ben David. Where is the real Yad Avshalom, or where was it? I don't know. And who's buried here? I also don't know. But I just want to share one really, really incredible irony. I talked about those magnificent structures with the pyramid at the top called a nefesh. The rabbis in the Talmud, or in the Mishnah actually, had a very, very ambivalent attitude towards these structures. They didn't prohibit them. People did this, wealthy people did this as a way to memorialize those who died. But the rabbis said, Ein osin nefashot latzadikim. This is a Tosefta that's quoted in the Yerushalmi Masechet Bikurim. Ein osin nefashot latzadikim. Really righteous people, we don't need to make these monuments with this nefesh at the top for them. Divreihem hein hein zichronam. A righteous person's real legacy is not a huge monument made out of stone, but what he said, what he did in this world is his real legacy. So ein osin nefashot latzadikim. You can build it if you want, but for a real righteous person, it's not the stone monument that matters. It's the legacy that the person leaves behind. And look at the irony. Somebody, we don't know who, but somebody who may have been a wonderful person, spent a lot of time and money to build this magnificent structure so that he would be remembered, and whoever he was has been forgotten. And instead his grave became known as the grave of Avshalom, and perhaps not due to any fault of his, but it became a site that fathers used to take their children to come and throw rocks at it so that they could curse the memory of Avshalom ben David. And whoever actually is buried here was forgotten. So these tombs that are here from the Second Temple period were built by people who had a certain desire to be remembered, and the legacy they left behind is perhaps something else entirely.